Are you tired of being rejected for IT jobs for flimsy reasons? Are you a computer science graduate tired of seeing ignorant people take your job? In this video, we'll tell you how to avoid being blocked and rejected by recruiters at large companies. At US Code, we want to wish you a happy 2026. We want the best for you and your family, just as we do for our own. If you're a software engineer looking for work, you already know you won't get it because, as we explained in our previous videos, boot camps have a monopoly on IT jobs almost everywhere. Either you pay them, or you have very little chance of being employed this year. It's not because of AI, it's not because of market changes. You're not getting hired because boot camps are influencing the entire hiring process to place only those who pay them for their services. At the same time, they can use this lucrative business to launder money for others, legalizing funds that may come from other illicit activities. Boot camps must be under the protection and manipulation of global mafias, otherwise, they wouldn't have all that infrastructure and power. However, we have news that will interest you. We can stop boot camps and make recruiters, who likely receive hefty bribes, stop hiring the least suitable candidate and instead hire you, a professional with all the knowledge and experience that every IT company needs today, in 2026, without paying a single dollar to boot camps. How? Very simple. Boot camps and recruiters at large companies are confident they control all the variables that make their business profitable, but they don't realize that if they don't have anyone to interview, they also don't have anyone to reject. So, we propose something very simple: share this video on all your social media platforms and join our group. This January and February, recruiters will be searching for new candidates and will also be pressuring candidates who were already scheduled for interviews last year. Recruiters need candidates to justify hiring boot camp students. Without candidates to unfairly reject, they can't hire anyone, no matter how many bribes they're offered, because they'll be subjected to thorough audits by the hiring committee, which are anything but convenient for recruiters. Remember, they need to reject 100 people like you to hire one boot camp graduate. Therefore, our proposal is that, as Riddhi Dutta suggests in his video 60% in Class 12 to cracking Google and Amazon, you postpone your interviews and don't agree to be interviewed in January. The justification will be that you want to perform your best in the interview and that's why you need more time to practice, just as Riddhi Dutta did with Google and Big Smile. Then, argue that if you're rejected, the recruiter will block you for at least 6 months, and state explicitly that neither you nor the recruiter want that. Use Riddhi's name and the link to his video that we've included in the description in your defense. This way, you won't be blocked in January or unfairly denied the opportunity. The recruiter will let them do it, so ask them to meet with you again in a month and schedule an appointment. Don't hang up now without scheduling the new appointment. If you'd like, we've shared a document with links to problems you can address during that month. However, remember that the recruiter has already decided to reject you before the technical interviews even begin, so with this tactic, you won't allow them to reject you. We'll tell you what to do to tie their hands in February and force them to do everything they can to avoid rejection because they've been exposed. But first, please like, subscribe to our channel and share this video because the more people who follow the steps in this example. What we're sharing in this video is phase 1, but we depend on many more people following phase 1, just like you, and everyone completing phase 2 so that recruiters are forced to change their minds about rejecting you and everyone else. As we mentioned in the previous video, boot camps are useless if we stop applying or not being interviewed. Recruiters need to reject 100 candidates for every new employee that possibly bribed through boot camps. So, without us, recruiters will have to reject someone else from a boot camp to justify it, or the hiring committee will scrutinize everyone, recruiters and technical interviewers alike, and realize they approved candidates based on very simple questions or performances that the boot camp candidates didn't do well at all. We already know that the first step of our plan is to postpone the interview for a month, leaving recruiters with no one to reject. In the previous video, we explained how to convince them to postpone your interview, and we also told you that if you don't postpone it, you'll be rejected no matter how perfectly you perform. If you didn't pay for a bootcamp, it's almost impossible to move on to the next stage. Imagine recruiters in January unable to justify hiring bootcamp graduates. They might postpone the process, withholding the applications from the hiring committee and telling each bootcamp graduate that the committee is overwhelmed. However, the bootcamps that allegedly pay the bribes will be in crisis and demand immediate hiring, as they've already paid and are now losing money. Therefore, by the second month, the recruiters will be extremely stressed and forced to interview you and reject you as soon as possible. So, you'll have to ask for another month, knowing they won't grant it because they're backed into a corner. We suggest that for this new online meeting with the recruiter, you use one of the methods shown in the following video to record the conversation. There's no rule prohibiting candidates from recording their meetings with recruiters, but if they feel they're being recorded, they'll be terrified and likely to abandon the process. However, if you never tell them you're recording, they can't block or reject you. Because they never claim or confirm it, they have no legal grounds against anyone. And if they take action against you while being recorded, they know they could be exposed. But we must warn you, you shouldn't expose them. We can do it for you without revealing your identity, but we will reveal theirs. So, at the second meeting in February, or during your second month, you should tell them that we suggest you take a second month of practice. Tell them that in this video, we explain that recruiters who aren't taking bribes from boot camps will give you that second month of practice, and that those who insist they can't give you that month have ulterior motives and have already decided to reject you, no matter how perfect your interview performance would be. Once you say this, some will be offended, and others will calmly say that these bribes don't exist. Those who act offended are the ones who are possibly taking bribes, and of those who act calmly, at least 50% will be recruiters with a lot of self-control or who have already dealt with another candidate who told them about our video. So, you still won't know whether or not they're taking bribes. You can negotiate with them by saying you're very worried and that it's unfair to be rejected by interviewers who affirm your performance was poor when it was excellent, and then block you for another 6 months. If they ask if you're recording them, just repeat the phrase FBI agents always use, "I am not qualified to confirm or deny that statement, so legally you cannot reject me." If they continue to pressure you with hostile responses and threaten to take action against you, cite the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. Even if they contact you from outside the United States, the company they represent is obligated to uphold the US Constitution, and therefore, so are they. Citing the Fifth Amendment is a bit of an exaggeration, but if necessary, they can't contradict it or reject you for citing it. Therefore, they'll have no choice but to refrain from acting against you, neither during that meeting nor in subsequent interviews. So, if you ask for a month's notice, then a second month, and make them feel like you're recording them during the second meeting but don't confirm anything, they certainly won't affect your performance from then on, and they'll give you the job if you perform at least 60% of the way you could, as if you were blindfolded. In the next video, we'll suggest how you can record the meetings without them controlling it, and in another video, we'll give you an example of how to confront the recruiter so they put you in the bootcamp interview group because they had no other option. But first, please like, subscribe to our channel and share this video because the more people who follow the steps in this example, we suggest methods for recording the interviews without recruiters or interviewers knowing. They'll suspect it, but they won't be able to do anything about it, so they'll have to continue the interview and will only be forced to reject you if you were truly worse than those in boot camps, which is almost impossible. Currently, all video conferencing apps offer features that prevent any other program from recording the interview's audio from the same computer. In other words, if the interview is scheduled on Meets, you can record the computer screen via Zoom, but not the interview's audio, only yours as the candidate. Therefore, in all cases, you should position a camera that points directly at your computer screen and ensure that everything on the screen is clearly visible and that both your voice and the interview's or recruiter's voice are clearly recorded. If the interview is by phone, simply put the call on speakerphone and tell them you don't have AirPods or headphones. If the call is through Meets, Teams, Zoom, or another app, you should request to use the normal audio because you don't have headphones. Although it might be annoying and cause echo, all video call apps can eliminate echo, and they cannot reject you for not having headphones. If they do reject you for this reason, they are denying you the opportunity to work with them because you lack a device that isn't specified in the job description as being required during the interview. Even if they ask for it, it is discriminatory to require it if you don't have it or don't want to use it. At the same time, you should enter the interview and set up a dynamic background so the interview can't see what's behind you in the room. Also, the camera shouldn't be directly behind you, so if you move near it, the interview won't be able to see it briefly, and you shouldn't accidentally move the camera. Once the interview is over, be completely confident in your answers. If you think they were perfect or nearly perfect, send us the video. If you're rejected, let us know, and we'll expose those involved without revealing your identity. You can't expose the injustice on your own, but we as a group can do it for you while maintaining your anonymity. Remember, we don't deserve to be rejected if we perform well, only to have the position taken by someone who only took a 4-month course and knows nothing about the realities of computer science. If we unite, boot camps will lose many of the jobs they're currently taking from us. Other safer method, just in case that the interview asks to remove the dynamic background, is to record the screen with any app you can Google and then just record the audio with your mobile phone. In this case you can show your home and the fact that you don't have a camera behind you but you are recording the screen and the interview voice at the same time without letting him know about the recording. Also, the voice recording will contain all the indications or supposed mistakes that the interview could have that could affect you and make you fail. We'll show you the strategy to follow to secure a series of interviews without the risk of rejection based on trivial or nonsensical reasons. This starts with the initial interview meeting with the recruiter, where you should first negotiate a 1-month postponement and then address concerns about the impact of boot camps on IT companies worldwide. How? Follow our step-by-step flowchart. It's crucial that you record all meetings and interviews, as we demonstrated in the previous video. Step 1. Meet the recruiter. You should ask to postpone your interview for a month or more because you watched the video 60% in Class 12 to Cracking Google and Amazon by Riddhi Dutta, where he recommended taking that time to complete all the free LeetCode exercises to be fully prepared for the interview. You should argue that it's preferable, for both of you and the recruiter, to postpone the test for a month and do exceptionally well rather than being rejected and having to wait 6 months to try again. We know this isn't ideal for the recruiter, but they can't say anything to you, so in 90% of cases, he'll grant the postponement. Now, before the meeting ends, ask them to give you a date for the next meeting with him or the interview appointment. Step 2. Request another postponement. You must request another postponement. It's very important that you do so. If you have an interview scheduled, request a meeting with the recruiter before the interview and tell them you're very worried and are requesting another postponement. Doing it in writing won't have the same effect and could block you for a long time if they don't meet with you. But if the meeting does happen, ask for more time, which they will almost certainly refuse. Since many people are doing the same thing, the recruiter has no way to justify hiring candidates from boot camps. They need you and the others to fill the rejection list, which already needs 100 rejected applicants from each admitted boot camp student. We already know that they will refuse it. Step 3. Show them your concerns about not receiving fair treatment during the interview. If you don't express your fear, they will proceed with the interview plan, where it's already decided that you will be rejected no matter what, regardless of your performance. That's why it's important to show them your fear that they may have already decided to reject you and to follow the instructions in the next step. Step 4. Show them our US code channel. If you don't show it, the recruiter will try to tell you not to worry and will continue with the plan where you'll be rejected no matter what you do. But if you show them our channel or tell them that we accuse them of having already decided to reject you after the interview, even if you do perfectly, the recruiter will be offended but will fear losing their job. We'll be your perfect shield, and our reports will be the weapons that make the recruiter fear for their job and the income they rely on to support their family if they don't reverse your premeditated rejection. Why? Because when they see our videos, they'll know we figured it out and they'll have no choice but to add you to the bootcamp group to ensure you receive the same treatment they do. Step 5. Record the meeting and interviews. This step is very important. If you record every meeting and interview, you'll protect yourself from being unfairly rejected. However, if you are unfairly rejected, you'll have the right to claim unfair treatment in any lawsuit against both the recruiters and the interviews. It's nearly impossible to win a lawsuit against large companies, but suing each individual employee involved is a different story. The company won't protect them, and judges in each lawsuit will rule that the actions of each individual employee cannot be considered and that the process must be repeated. We know this last point requires careful consideration and isn't as simple as it sounds. But it works. We already explained how to record in the previous video. It's quite possible that recruiters will ask you to use a headset with a microphone, claiming that not using one will disqualify you or make it difficult to communicate with you. However, if you tell them you don't have the money to buy new ones, they'll have to continue because otherwise they're violating your right to a fair interview, despite not having an item that isn't listed in the job description and isn't legally required for interviews. It would be discriminatory to stop you from continuing the process because you're not using a headset, and it would violate your personal rights. If you don't record the interview and don't make them feel like you're recording them, they might conduct biased interviews with the intention of rejecting you no matter what. Step 6. Invoke the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. The recruiter and interview may not ask if you are recording them, but if they do, you should invoke the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. Denying it will invalidate the recording should you need to use it in court. If you claim you are recording, they will tell you there is a document you signed agreeing to company policies that supposedly prohibit it. Most companies say this, but such a policy doesn't exist because it would violate your rights. Since they are recording all your meetings and interviews, you have the right to do the same. If a policy did exist prohibiting you from recording meetings, even though they are doing it, you can invalidate it in any court by arguing that you signed the agreement under duress, knowing that this specific policy violates your civil rights. But the company forced you to do it in order to be eligible for a job that will get you out of the unemployment you're in. As we've already mentioned, suing a giant corporation is extremely difficult, but suing an employee who, acting on their own initiative, violated your rights to block your candidacy for any reason is against the law, and the lawsuit will likely proceed in your favor. The employee would have to pay you damages for blocking you or abruptly ending the process without evidence of any serious wrongdoing. If you invoke the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, even if the employee of the company interviewing you suspects wrongdoing, they will have no proof and cannot block you, even if you were to use the recording to expose them later. By the time they ask if you're recording, they will have no evidence, and mere suspicion is not enough for them to take action against you. This way, you leave everyone involved in your recruitment process defenseless. If they conduct interviews with overly complex exercises for the allotted time, it's a problem for them because they won't be able to prove in court that all candidates were evaluated with the same exercise. They'll have to prove it. They'll have to show that other candidates passed the evaluation implementing the correct code for the same overly complex exercise that you did, and the company won't allow them to present all the interviews of all the candidates evaluated in the same month in court. If really exists someone that performed a perfect interview with that exercise in such a short time, therefore, if you can get a university professor to testify in your favor and reveal how long it took them and how long it took a group of students to complete the same exercise, the interview will be in serious trouble. That's why you should ask each interview for their full name, position, and the office they're assigned to for each interview. Step 7. The recruiter will add you to the bootcamp candidate pool. From this point on, the recruiter will add you to the bootcamp group so you can be interviewed at the same level of difficulty as those already accepted before the process even began. Their only advantage over you is that they already have the solution to the exercise, and you don't. However, if you perform better than them, the interviews can't reject you simply because you didn't use the code the bootcamp already wrote. The recruiter will review the entire interview, and even if they don't understand the code you wrote, if it's clear that your code executes everything correctly, they will modify the interview's report to reflect the experience of those who were accepted, changing only your name. Because they'll be afraid that if you did a good job, you'll sue each and every one of them and give us the videos so we can expose them for you. But only if you did a good job in the interview. Because if you didn't, the only unfair thing will be that many will be hired because they already knew the answer by heart, but you won't be able to prove it. In other words, they'll hire you based on cohesion if and only if you did well, but they'll do it because they themselves know they're doing things wrong and don't want legal trouble. So, by implementing this method step by step, the only thing your hiring will depend on is your own performance. You'll no longer have to deal with being rejected before the recruitment process even begins. You've been rejected without real justification, so they could hire someone completely incapable of doing your job and who only paid a bribe to a boot camp. Remember, we don't deserve to be rejected if we perform well, only to have the position filled by someone who took a 4-month course and knows nothing about the realities of working in computer science. If we unite, boot camps will lose many of the jobs they're currently taking from us. We'll simulate the process you should follow in meetings with recruiters. By following this example, you'll ensure fair treatment throughout the process and avoid rejection before it even begins. But first, please like, subscribe to our channel, and share this video because the more people who follow the steps in this example, the more effective it will be. Recruiter's name, Anna. Candidate's name, John.
Hello, John. How are you today?
Hi Anna, I'm great, full of enthusiasm. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. So are you prepared for the interview?
Well, I feel like I'm prepared, but I watched a video on YouTube from an Indian guy. Let me take a look at his name. I had it right here. He is Dordi Dutta, and the title of his video is 60% in Class 12 to Cracking Google and Amazon. He says that he asked his recruiter for extra time to make 2 or 3 exercises of LeetCode, and that's the way he got into Google. So I wanted to ask you for that extra month to do exactly the same. I'm sure that I will get the job after doing that, and you also will get the success of having one of your recruits admitted. It would be unfair if I don't have that month and then I have to wait 6 months to reapply again. So, can you please give me that extra time, please?
Well, if you need that time and you will do those exercises meticulously, yes. We can schedule the interview for next month.
Oh my god, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure though.
Can we set a meeting already for next month to set the interview?
Sure, I will send you an email with a link to the company scheduler, so you can set out the next meeting whenever you're ready.
Oh my god, thank you. See you next month.
1 month later.
Hello, John. How are you today?
Hi Anna, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. So are you prepared for the interview?
Anna, I will be honest with you. Is it possible to postpone the interview again for another month?
No, John, it's not possible anymore because you don't know how many candidates we are handling, so we can't postpone it anymore.
So there are more people asking to postpone the interviews.
No, I'm not saying that.
But you are not denying it either.
Yes, but...
Oh, there you go. So you can't postpone my interview because other candidates have requested the same.
No, I'm not saying that. What I am trying to say is that we already gave you a month, but if you feel that you need more time, you can cancel this candidacy and apply again whenever you feel ready.
So you want me to cancel my candidacy, right? I thought you wanted me to get admitted approving all steps.
No, please don't get me wrong. Of course I want you to get admitted, but if you don't feel prepared, maybe it is better to take some time to get more preparation and then you can reapply. If you cancel your candidacy at this time, you won't be blocked for 6 months if you are rejected. So
it is already decided that I will be rejected no matter how great I perform the interview.
No, of course not. Why are you thinking that?
Well, I will be honest with you. I've been watching some YouTube videos and I came across videos of people who were hired at G because they took a bootcamp course and they don't even have a bachelor's degree in computer science. Later I watched a group of experts in computer science allege that the bootcamps may be paying bribes to make companies admit students from those places. And I have to say, when you see videos of these bootcamp students who got hired by big companies, you realize just how ignorant they are. So much so that my grandmother would say they barely have enough brain cells to keep from soiling their pants. How is it possible that GU hired that guy? Clement something. Also, this expert group says that to hire somebody like him, the recruiter needs to contact at least 100 candidates to reject them no matter how great they perform the interview. You know, to fulfill that statistic, about 100 rejections for each hired person. So, I am worried because I want this job. I need this job. I have the experience and the knowledge to get the opportunity to be admitted, but I can't wait 6 months for another opportunity. I've been rejected for so many strange situations that it's impossible not to trust in this group. You can find them on YouTube with the name of US Code. Their channel is at USKOD.
John, I understand how worried you are. I have to tell you that it doesn't happen in our company. If this YouTube channel is very convincing, then there's no way to tell you in words that this might happen in other companies but not here. Please trust me when I say that I am doing everything to give you the best experience you would have in an interview with our company. So, if you are ready, you won't have any obstacles from our side.
Well, it sounds terrific. So, if I do everything great during the interview, I will get the job, right?
Yes, of course. You don't have anything to be afraid of. I want you to get approved and so will the interviewer. We are here to help you as long as you find the solution to the exercises correctly.
Oh, that's great. So let's schedule the interview now, shall we?
Great. Wait a moment. Do you have headphones with a microphone available to use during the interview? Because you need it.
Oh no, I don't.
Can you find someone for the interview?
I could try, but I can't be sure. Those are quite expensive. Also, the group of experts US Code says no company can force its candidates to have and use headphones of that type because it would be discriminatory, since what matters is our ability to solve problems, not whether we have headphones or not. Furthermore, almost all companies provide headphones to new hires when they start working.
Yes, that's right. But that echo is annoying. It could affect the understanding between you and the interviewer.
We'll stop here because, although the echo can be a factor, interviews are obligated to make every effort to understand everything despite the sound problems. Many times, interviews in India have made all candidates from around the world suffer because some start speaking in Hindi knowing that candidates won't understand them, and others don't care if their sound quality is poor. Then they have the insolence to reject someone because they didn't understand them, despite the difficulties they themselves created. So, if many interviews do that even though their own company forbids it, but allows you to do it, you wouldn't be breaking any established rules. Furthermore, if the interviews don't provide good sound, you have the right to request a repeat interview, but nobody usually asks it. Therefore, we encourage you to defend yourself by insisting during the interview that, if the sound causes them discomfort, American companies state on their websites their commitment to being understanding of noise issues such as neighbors, barking dogs, street vendors, and so on. Therefore, they cannot use the sound as an excuse or influence their report based on any difficulties the source of the noise might cause, because they are the ones who are obliged to work under those conditions, to understand the candidate despite sound failures, but you are protected by the commitment of all the companies to offer you the best conditions on their part. If the company is so understanding towards candidates in its policies, then all its employees are obligated to be fully understanding towards you.
Are you recording this meeting? If you are doing that, you should stop.
Dear Anna, I choose to invoke the Fifth Amendment of the US Constitution. First of all, you are recording this video. Don't lie to me because the tab of my Explorer shows the icon of a recording. Your department requires a recording for control of so many features in the hiring process, even if nobody reviews those videos. Also, US Code says on their videos that no American enterprises has any prohibition if any candidate records meetings and interviews. Also, they say that if there's any prohibition of that in the company's policies, that clause is against all candidate civil rights. So it is invalid by the federal laws of America. Also, I have to say that I haven't confirmed or denied what you're asking. In fact, I invoke the Fifth Amendment of the US Constitution. So you can't legally act against any candidate, not me nor anyone else, just because you could have a suspicion. So legally I recommend you that both make as this question never existed, because US Code says that it is almost impossible to sue the giant company. If the recruiter or the interview blocks anyone, the candidate could sue the recruiter and the interviewer, and the probabilities of winning are over the 90% in case of a recording from the candidate side that demonstrates a bad behavior of the company's employees.
At this point, Anna and any recruiter will panic and won't be able to reject anyone after that answer unless the candidate performs exceptionally bad in their technical interview. And this will be the expression on every recruiter's face from this moment on. If your recruiter realizes you might be recording the meeting or interview and doesn't say anything, it's because someone has already told them this speech, and from that moment on, they prefer not to ask the question and feign ignorance if anyone mentions, inside the company, that the candidate might have recorded something.
Okay, I didn't ask anything. I will send you an email with a document to fill your available spots. The more slots you give us, the better it will be for everyone, both you and us. Good luck with your interview.
Thank you so much.
After a conversation like this, every candidate will end up with a smile like John's, and every recruiter like Anna will end up with the same expression. Don't feel bad for her, because she won't lose her job, maybe the bribes if she's one of the recruiters bought off by some organization outside the company. But always remember, it's either her or you, it's either her or your family's food, it's either her or your family's well-being, because they will always be the ones who won't give you the job, no matter how great you do in every interview. The system is corrupt, and we are all victims of it. If you do what John did, just perform exceptionally well in the interviews, and you'll have your job, just like it was before 2012 when boot camps started appearing. Remember, we don't deserve to be rejected if we perform well, only to have the position taken by someone who only took a 4-month course and knows nothing about the realities of working in computer science. If we unite, boot camps will lose many of the job openings they're currently taking from us. But first, please like, subscribe to our channel, and share this video. You'll land the job you've been searching for years, the one recruiters and interviews have unfairly denied you until now. Guaranteed. So we urge you to apply to every position you can at every giant American company, even if you already have a job, just for fun and to teach them a lesson. If you apply the entire script we share in both videos, you'll help us dismantle the power of boot camps over IT companies and will get a new job opportunity. Boot camps will still exist, but they can no longer sell the idea that they can get you hired because they can no longer influence hiring processes the way they do today. Remember, if you tackle the exercises we shared in the video at the end of our description and have a respectful and engaging conversation with your recruiter, mentioning us, our channel, our videos, and the Fifth Amendment to the US Constitution, or its equivalent in your country, all you need to do is keep up the great work you already do, and you'll get hired. Even more, so when they always say at the start of each recruitment process that all candidates have their job guaranteed and that each one will only be competing against themselves, not the other candidates. So, if they call 1,000 people for that recruitment process and all 1,000 candidates follow this script and give amazing interviews, the company will have to hire all 1,000 candidates. Because they can't tell you that you didn't get in because they selected the top 10. So share our videos with all your friends, watch our videos several times with them, practice the meetings and interviews together, and you'll be able to get into companies like Company M and Company G. With Big Smile, it's a different story because the automated system in Vancouver completely prohibits it. We don't recommend accepting any offer from Big Smile unless there have been in-person protests at their Seattle and Vancouver offices demanding that they eliminate the online assessment that they control from Canada for the whole world. Remember that by sharing this video on your social media, we can all work together to beat boot camps in 2026. We still need to explain all the implications of being included on each list and how the names and email addresses of each candidate are being used to justify hiring personnel from one state to another or from one country to another, creating serious problems with illegal immigration in the United States. The existence of boot camps not only creates a serious problem for all professionals who have fully completed their studies and possess the necessary experience to assume any role that any IT company requires anywhere in the world, but also generates enormous losses for every company that hires unqualified personnel, believing them to be qualified. Even worse, these hires can leave many people unemployed in each country to fill those jobs in another, and they also pose a serious risk of bankruptcy for the companies that hire them, since many of these companies are small or medium-sized and cannot cover the revenue shortfall or potential lawsuits arising from the inexperience of their employees. However, these companies are subcontracting people in other countries to work remotely and at the same time hiring unqualified personnel because they are paid much less than qualified personnel in each of those countries where they recruit. For example, if they are looking to hire personnel in countries like Mexico or Guatemala, the salaries would be around 3 times less than what any professional in the United States earns. However, when they hire someone who is not a computer science professional, the salary these companies end up paying is 6 to 8 times less than what they pay for a professional in the United States, and at the same time, 3 or 4 times less than what a professional in this field earns in Mexico or Guatemala. But for large and giant companies, the terms change because almost 100% of these companies don't want remote employees. If they do have employees working from home, their homes must be located within 100 miles of their assigned office. Therefore, in the case of American companies, this personnel assigned to offices in the United States needs to have the required residency documents as mandated by the government. Each company's lawyers must then file a petition with the U.S. Department of State to obtain an H-1B visa or any other visa that allows the employee to reside legally in the United States. To do this, certain minimum requirements need to be met to guarantee and demonstrate to the State Department that the person is qualified to perform the work required for that job, and at the same time it needs to be guaranteed that a person was sought throughout the United States to fill that position but was not found. So that often the vast majority of those rejected for that position are Americans or professionals who have graduated from American universities, who, when left without work, have to opt to be staff in a fast food restaurant instead of being software engineers in these companies. Why? Because at the same time, boot camps are allowing fast food restaurant workers to leave their home countries and enter the United States, pretending to be qualified to perform jobs that were immorally denied to American professionals even before they were interviewed, simply because of the money paid by another foreigner. But how is this possible if issuing these visas requires a very thorough background check? It's very simple. The background check isn't being done directly by the State Department. Instead, it's relying on the company applying for the visa to conduct the check correctly. The government only looks at what the company's own lawyers report. These immigration lawyers submit the documents to the government without realizing which ones, and how many, are false, and the government trusts that a corporation like Big Smile, Company M, and Company G has the resources to verify the accuracy of everything submitted by the new employee. But remember, the candidate who has been hired often doesn't respond to any of the emails or document requests from each company. That's handled by someone hired in countries outside the United States using a VPN to make it seem as if the person responding is in the new hire's country of origin. For example, someone in a country like Mexico pays for the services of a boot camp and, after a year, has paid more than $50,000, as Clement Mihalescu implies he did between 2016 and 2017. Then, someone in a country like India works for the American boot camp and organizes the candidate's resume, LinkedIn profile, and application to a specific company, always using a VPN with IPs from the candidate's country. Someone within the boot camp arranges payment, possibly in cryptocurrency, for the contact within the company and provides them with a list containing the candidate's name and email address. The candidate is notified of their interview with the recruiter and receives a manual detailing what to say and how to answer each question, including gestures, behavior, and much more. The recruiter at the company sends a request for availability for the first technical interview, without knowing who will respond, and the boot camp representative answers, adhering to the schedule the candidate provided a week prior. Once the interview is scheduled by the recruiter, the boot camp representative informs the candidate of the appointment and provides the exercises that will be asked during the interview. They also provide instructions on what to ask the interviewer before implementing the solution and what to say or ask at each stage of the interview. so the candidate can memorize it like a script for a play. This process is repeated for every interview cycle the candidate goes through, and even if they make mistakes in each interview, they will always be accepted because what the committee or AI reviews is the written report of each meeting, not the video. So, either the recruiter or the lead interview prepares a positive report so that the candidate on the bootcamp list is approved by paying the bribe, and they reject all the others just to maintain the expected statistics, 100 rejections for every acceptance. Everything is clear so far. But how do they lie to the State Department? It's much simpler than that. To verify everything on a candidate's resume, the company's legal department assigns a law intern to contact all the companies and universities listed. The first thing the intern does is Google each of these institutions. Once they have the email address or phone number, the intern contacts the supposed organization, unaware that the person who answers is the same bootcamp agent who filled out and manipulated the new employee's application from another country. This agent would answer the call using an app that sells IP phone numbers from various countries, like Skype, regardless of the day or time. The agent then replies to the email, confirming the information on the new employee's resume. The law intern certifies all the content of the new employee's resume as true without knowing that both the universities mentioned and the companies only have profiles on LinkedIn and fake websites. They do not exist in real life, because although the profiles mention physical office addresses, if they tried to go to those places they would find other businesses there and not a university or an IT company. Without suspecting anything, the legal department proceeds to petition the State Department for an H-1B visa for this new employee, and both the company and the new employee are implicated in a federal crime for providing false documentation to the U.S. federal government. At the same time, the legal department justifies hiring this candidate, claiming that despite extensive searches, no suitable personnel could be found in the country to fill the vacancy, and providing lists of people with their names and email addresses. However, the government does not request the interview recordings because they lack the personnel to review them and a system capable of verifying that all videos are unique. They can only check if any names and email addresses are repeated on the lists for each position, failing to grasp how important it is to identify how many times names and emails are repeated within the same year for the same company. Why is it important for the government to compare the lists of names and emails provided by each company when they apply for a visa for their newly hired employee? Because all American IT companies have a policy of blocking candidates in their applications as soon as their evaluation process begins. That is, if a candidate is considered for a position in Spain, the system immediately blocks them for 6 months, and they cannot be considered for any other position anywhere else in the world for 6 months or a year unless a senior recruiter manually unblocks them. Therefore, it is impossible, according to the policies of all IT companies, for that same candidate to be considered for another position in Korea or any other country in a period of less than 6 months. Consequently, no candidate will have more than 2 application processes initiated per year at any one IT company. However, although recruiters demonstrate to governments that they interviewed and rejected more than 100 people for each admitted interviewee, they often have to use data from people who were rejected months or years before, not necessarily for a similar position, so they have to fill those statistics with any name regardless of whether those people have specifically participated in that recruitment process or not. As we know, small and medium-sized businesses never apply for green cards. The paperwork is expensive and must be paid for by the employer. Therefore, companies with fewer than 1,000 employees will never be in a position to use their own budget to apply for any visas. However, the opposite is true for large corporations. These companies have entire legal departments that work to maximize the number of visas they can apply for each year. Similarly, they have an unlimited capacity to create jobs, even if it's unnecessary or a huge waste of money, so they manipulate the law to apply for as many visas as the company wants, even if it exceeds the annual limit. Even so, these departments proceed to apply for visas for candidates recommended by recruiters as top 0.5% of developers. They also have to justify this to the relevant departments regarding the relocation of both the candidate and their entire family, which significantly increases the cost of the whole process. Now, if a company hires 50,000 employees worldwide each month, they must interview at least 100 to 200 candidates for each of those 50,000. Let's use 150 as an average and consider this: 50,000 times 150 equals 7.5 million. No company, no matter how gigantic, is equipped to interview that many candidates in a single month. Therefore, they use both data and videos of candidates who participated in previous years' recruitment processes to populate those 7.5 million and justify to company executives and governments worldwide that they are hiring the top 0.5% of candidates, when in reality they don't even interview 2 million new candidates in a single month. The fact that candidates are blocked by the system for 6 months makes it easier for recruiters to report to lawyers with false and deliberately manipulated data, repeating names, and emails of people the company itself has blocked and others who have stopped applying to that company. Legal departments pass this data to governments, including the U.S. State Department for jobs within the United States, and neither the State Department nor any government worldwide realizes that the data is fraudulent. They don't realize that many of the supposedly rejected candidates may actually be people who were hired a month earlier or who haven't participated in those companies' hiring processes for 2 years. But how can the U.S. State Department detect the fraud? Very simply, if the State Department examines the data provided by each company since the inception of boot camps until now, that is, from 2012 to the present, they will notice that the number of repeated emails and candidate identities that each company reports as having participated in recruitment processes in a given year is increasingly consistent. In other words, since 2012, a certain individual, identified as A, has appeared more frequently on the lists submitted to the DOS, even though, according to the internal regulations of these same American companies, that individual could not appear more than twice in a single year. Watch our next video to see an example of how these companies deceive you and your government every day, but first, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. This also helps more software engineers understand what's happening today.